Dear listeners, thank you for your incredible support in helping our channel grow. We're aiming for 1,000 subscribers, so please support us by subscribing and helping us reach this milestone. Now let's start the story. Flashback, Ben and Jack, the trip to hell. On the way to the hospital, the first house. Jack and I had succeeded in transitioning the squad from the beach to the first house, had even taken the first room in that house, and now we were looking at clearing the rest of the house. I began to pie the doorway when, son of a bitch, I saw a shit. Excuse me, insurgent. Thank God he didn't have his weapon ready. I dove out of the way as a short burst of AK fire strafed my previous position. Jack swore and yelled, "Mother scumsuckers," trying to kill my boy. He then tossed a frag into the room. For seconds later, the whole damn building shook much more than it should have while dust and pieces of the building started to fall around us. What the hell was going on? I looked at Jack. Jack looked at me and yelled, "It's an earthquake. Let's get the hell out of here." The entire squad ran from the building like our asses were on fire. We returned to our beachhead. We were all at the same one this time, ducked behind cover and watched as the building totally collapsed. Jack laughed, and I wondered how many pain pills he'd taken, and remarked, "Serves the scumsuckers right for trying to shoot Ben." He continued laughing and said, "Now that's the way you clear a building." The butterbar looked a little green around the gills and asked, "Does this happen often in Iraq?" Jack grinned at the butterbar and totally yanked his chain when he sarcastically answered, "Hell yeah, not many days go by in this paradise without having to deal with an earthquake." I felt mercy on the butterbar and corrected the information on earthquakes. "Sir, Jack is yanking your chain. The earthquakes are few and far between, but as you can see from the results, you don't want to be in any of the buildings when one happens." Then I praised Jack. "Thanks, Jack, for realizing what it was and getting our asses out of there." The butterbar actually asked, "What about the insurgents who were in the building?" I was sure he wanted to try to save them, and thank God Jack interrupted before he could finish his thought. "Well, they are on their way to hell." The butterbar asked, "Don't you mean they're heaven?" Jack laughed some more and answered, "Sir, if they go to heaven, then I sure as hell don't want to go there." The dust from the earthquake and collapsed building had settled, so I suggested, "Sir, we should use the diversion of the earthquake to move to our target building." Jack agreed. "Ben's right. We're wasting time." I looked at the squad and the butterbar then ordered, "Okay, even though we had a distraction from the earthquake, we still need to be careful as we head to our target building. Once again, we will leapfrog from position to position." I continued with specific directions. "I will take the point while Jack covers me, then the LCPL, and everyone else, and Jack will bring up the rear." Jack added further cautions. "Be careful around the other buildings, as they could be unstable from the earthquake and collapse. And also remember to expect some aftershocks." I looked at Jack and asked, "You ready?" He nodded. I jumped up and ran toward an adjacent building. When I got close, the first aftershock hit. The building I was headed for began to sway and looked like it was going to fall on top of me, so I quickly changed directions to the middle of the road. The very last place you want to be in Iraq or Afghanistan is in the middle of the road. I looked behind me and waved like crazy. Jack figured it out, and the whole squad took off after me. The aftershock seemed to last forever, which was long enough for me to reach the side of our target building. I spun around, put my back to the building, and covered the rest of the squad. They were having a hell of a time running because the aftershock got stronger. I watched as a couple other buildings went down. Thank God they were behind the squad. They finally got to the target building beside me and hugged the wall like me as the aftershock finished. The butterbar asked, "So now we begin to clear this building?" I looked at Jack. Jack looked at me, and I said, "I'm not going in this building until we are sure the aftershocks are over." I scanned the area, saw a good-looking, sturdy wall, and suggested, "We should take up a position behind that wall, contact base, and see if they have any idea when the aftershocks will be over." Jack stated the obvious, "Ben, that wall only protects us from this building, and we will have no cover from behind." I answered, "That's right. But the last aftershock took down the buildings behind us, so I figure we can dig some foxholes for protection from behind the wall and position several men to cover our sixes." The butterbar agreed. "That sounds like our plan. Do we leapfrog to the wall?" I looked up at our target building and said, "That's affirmative." The butterbar said, "I will go first, then Sergeant Blaine will come next." I knew there was a reason I liked this butterbar. Jack volunteered. Damn, this butterbar might be worth a shit after all, so I offered and reminded everyone, "I will come last again. Don't forget to run a random zigzag pattern." The butterbar took off and ran a hell of a random zigzag pattern. He jumped over the wall, slowly popped his head back up over the wall, and covered Ben as he came next. The whole squad made it without a single shot being fired by the insurgents. It was my turn, so I began to run as another aftershock hit. The ground swayed like crazy, parts of the building started to fall around me, and I hauled ass. I reached the wall, leapt over it, and the squad began to clap and cheer. I looked at them and demanded, "What the hell?" Ben laughed and said, "Jack, none of us knew that you could run so fast. Hell, I thought you were a goner." He pointed to where the building had been, and it was now a pile of rubble. I looked at the butter bar and asked, "What the hell are we supposed to do now?" I no sooner got the words out of my mouth than we started to take fire from the hospital. Ben grabbed his sniper rifle and ordered, "Jack, I need you to range me and do the calculations for the slope." The butter bar answered, "I need to call the base to see what their orders are with the building being gone. I'm not sure if we can finish this mission." I swore, "Like hell, we don't need the building to finish this mission. We just need to take care of the insurgents." I pulled out my spotting scope, set it up, and began to give the ranges to Ben adjusted for the slope. He took his first shot, and it blew the insurgent's head completely away. Damn, what a hell of a rifle. I continued to feed the ranges to Ben, and he continued to smoke the insurgents. Pretty quickly, I couldn't see any more insurgents in the windows, which meant they had changed their tactics. I ordered, "Keep an eye on the front door and the side doors. I think we're going to have some company soon." Ben moved his sniper rifle down to a hole in the wall, fired, and then yelled, "Here the scumsuckers come." He was right. It looked like angry ants swarming out of a disturbed anthill. The squad began to lay down hellacious fire, and Ben yelled, "Sir, get on the horn and call in the choppers before we're overrun." The butter bar was on the horn, then yelled back, "The choppers are 10 minutes out." I glanced at my watch and hoped like hell we had 10 more minutes. Flashback. Masha, I can't believe I survived today. After several naps with Linda, I physically felt better, but I was still very upset emotionally. Yes, I still had problems forgiving myself for ruining my chance to talk with Jack. Soon Louise would be here, so I needed to clean up and make myself more presentable. I took Linda into the bathroom with me, washed my face and her face, then I put on some light makeup, which practically made me cry again, because I remembered how my Jack commented on the other women in Russia who wore too much makeup. There was a knock on the door, so I assumed Louise was here. I took Linda to the front door, looked through the peephole, and was surprised when it was a woman I had never seen before. I called through the closed and locked door, "Please state your business." The woman held up an official-looking identification badge with her name and picture on it and said, "I am Martha Ray from the State Social Workers Department. I have several questions for you, Ms. Reynolds. So please open the door and let me in." I was still not convinced she was who she presented herself to be, so I asked, "Is there a number I can phone where I can verify your identity?" Martha Ray recited the number in a manner which told me she was not lying, so I opened the door and offered, "I am sorry, but one can never be too safe when there are strangers at the door." Martha Ray commented, "Don't worry about it, Ms. Reynolds. It was actually refreshing to see you taking such good precautions, especially since I arrived unannounced." I knew Louise would arrive soon, and I desired Martha to be gone before she arrived, so I asked, "Ms. Ray, what is the meaning of your arrival at my house today?" Martha pointed to Linda and said, "Ms. Reynolds, from what I understand, she is not your baby." I replied, "Yes, Ms. Ray, you are correct. She is the daughter of a friend of mine, and I babysit while my friend works." Martha Ray took out a folder from her bag, began to write, and said, "Ms. Reynolds, do you have a license to run a child care center in your home?" I was shocked and answered, "I am very sorry, Ms. Ray, but I did not know there was a requirement to have a license to watch a friend of mine's child." Martha Ray wrote more things in the folder and continued with the questions. "How much money do you make for taking care of your friend's child?" The doorbell rang and I asked to be allowed to answer the door. "Excuse me, Ms. Ray, that is most likely Louise, Linda's mother." I carried Linda with me, and as I checked the door, and it was indeed Louise. I opened the door, Linda saw Louise and began to coo and squirm excitedly in my arms. I passed Linda to Louise. Louise walked into the house, saw Ms. Ray and asked, "Who are you?" Martha Ray pulled out her identity badge, showed it to Louise, who checked it carefully, and asked, "Is there a problem here?" Martha Ray stated, "There could be. Ms. Reynolds doesn't have a license to run a child care center in her home, and the neighbors filed a complaint, so I needed to check things out. Now, Ms. Reynolds, back to my question, how much money does she pay you for watching her child?" I answered, "I do not charge Louise anything for taking care of Linda. Since my husband is deployed to Iran, I needed something to occupy my time during the day, and taking care of Linda is a joy." Ms. Ray gave me a strange look and asked for clarification. "Are you telling me you don't charge Louise anything for watching her child?" Louise concurred. "That's correct. Masha watches Linda for free. I don't even bring her food from the market where I work." I further strengthened our case when I added, "Yes, I shop at the market for my own food. I can even show you the receipts to prove it." Ms. Ray asked, "You keep your receipts from the market when you go shopping?" I replied, "Of course, doesn't everyone?" Louise laughed and said, "No, Masha. Many women don't even take the receipts out of the store with them." Then Louise looked at Ms. Ray and slightly confronted her. "So, Martha, are we in some sort of trouble?" Martha Ray smiled and said, because Ms. Reynolds isn't charging you for taking care of Linda, you are both okay. However, Ms. Reynolds, you still should apply for a childcare license, just to be safe. I asked, Ms. Ray, what are the procedures for acquiring a childcare license, and will I still be able to care for Linda while the license is pending? Martha Ray stated, Ms. Reynolds, I can start the paperwork today for you. I can also do the in-home inspection while I am here. You might want to have a discussion with your neighbors so they don't continue to file complaints. I smiled and replied, Ms. Ray, thank you for doing this for me. Without Linda to watch during the day, my days would seem endless. And I am shocked about my neighbors filing the complaint since I have never even met them. Louise said, Masha, don't worry. I know exactly how to handle your neighbors. We will have a barbecue for them this Sunday. Ms. Ray said, that would be a great idea since they could meet both of you and Linda, and the meeting should dispel any concerns. Now let's do your home inspection. Louise offered, Martha, I was springing for pizza tonight for dinner. Would you please join us? Ms. Ray looked at Louise and said, I really shouldn't, but I didn't have time for lunch today. Louise interrupted, good, then it's settled. You're having pizza with us. Louise ordered the pizza, and the three of us did the home inspection. Ms. Ray remarked many times on how clean my house was, which made me very happy. There was only one thing I needed to fix, and that was I needed a crib for Linda. I promised, Ms. Ray, there is a little shopping area on my way home from the market. I will purchase one tomorrow. The pizza arrived. We sat around the table, ate the pizza, and Ms. Ray confessed, Masha, I see very few homes that are like yours. Most of the homes I inspect, I wouldn't allow my dog to stay at. They are dirty and trash is strewn everywhere. The need for a good and safe place for children is high in this city, so if I were you, I would consider taking in more children. Louise reinforced her statement. She's right, Masha. The other women at work are jealous of me for having you to look after Linda. Much too soon dinner was over and Ms. Ray said, I need to get going. Louise also said, yeah, I need to get home and clean my uniform for tomorrow. They both left. I cleaned up the mess, did the dishes, and considered the idea of watching more children. Flashback, Glenn and Jennifer, a big mess. Mother sure didn't make finding her car easy because we searched and never found it. I looked at the rearview mirror, pointed, and suggested, Daddy, perhaps the Blue Star people could help us find Mother's car? Daddy answered, Jennifer, my prank. I stamped my foot and interrupted with a serious threat. Daddy, if you start that princess garbage again, I'm going to get out of the car and walk home. He laughed and apologized. Sorry, Jennifer. It's just an old habit of mine. Your idea is great, but I'm not sure they will give me the location of Evelyn's car. I smiled at Daddy and said, well, it can't hurt to try. I pushed the Blue Star button and there was an almost immediate response. Daddy explained the situation and the Blue Star lady said, Sir, normally we wouldn't do this. However, I do see that your name is listed as the primary owner of both the vehicle you are in and also the vehicle you refer to as your wife's. Give me a few minutes to get approval from a supervisor and I will be right back. It seemed like it took forever, but she finally came back on and said, Okay, sir, I have approval from my supervisor and have checked the records. Your wife's car hasn't been moved for 2 days and is located 5 rows over close to the entry into the airport. Is there anything else I can help you with? Daddy said, Thank you so much. Is there any way you could pay the parking fee? She laughed and answered, Sorry, sir, but that's one thing I can't do. The Blue Star lady was gone, so we drove to where she said Mother's car was located, and there it was. Daddy unlocked the car with his extra key. We both began to look inside, and Daddy swore, Son of a bitch. Evelyn must have taken the parking ticket with her. I asked, So what does that mean? Daddy shook his head and answered, More trouble for both of us. Stay in Evelyn's car while I park mine. Then we will take the car to the parking booth and see what they can do. Flashback, Alexei, at the laboratory. I documented the injuries to Mother in my private hidden notebook. I remembered the sutures on her face and did my best to sketch them, but it took me several tries until I was satisfied. Then I slipped my notebook back into its hiding place. The psychologist arrived and said, Alexei, I am sorry you had to witness your mother's insane outburst. I displayed my very best sad expression and then asked, Sir, after my mother's disheartening outburst, I wonder if I might visit Chow Mein to assuage my depression? The psychologist began to deny my request, so I once again squeezed my testicle, which produced some tears. He saw the tears and relented. Alexei, I am not certain of Chow Mein's stability, so you may see her as long as orderlies accompany you into her room. I enjoyed the game I was playing, and manipulating the psychologist was trivial. The orderlies came and escorted me to Chow Mein's room, where I had a surprise. Father was there and said, Alexei, I feel that it would be better if I escorted you into Chow Mein's room since she knows me, and she doesn't know the orderlies. This was even better since I could now observe Chow Mein's reaction to my father. We entered the room. Chow Mein dashed to the far corner of the room and hissed at both of us. I bent at my waist, reached out my hand, and approached her with one of her favorite treats. I had not gone 3 steps when Chow Mein growled akin to a tiger and launched herself toward me. I rapidly retreated while Father intercepted her. I was shocked at the violence of her attack on Father. She raked him with her claws and bit his leg with such force he screamed, "Someone help me." The orderlies opened the door and charged into the room. Chow Mein saw her chance and darted between their legs and into the hallway toward her freedom. One of them pressed a button on the wall and a klaxon sounded. Flashback, Mira and Ira, back in Kazakhstan. The battle with our adversaries waned as they expired under our superior accuracy. I teased my sister, Ira. An apology is required from your corporeal self, since subduing the adversaries here eliminated the requirement of traipsing through this locale in quest of the Grail of Holy. Ira terminated the last adversary and asserted, Miranda Sedankina, no apology will be emanating from my larynx. The luck of Lady leered upon your bumbling blunder to extricate ourselves from the icy digits of fate. Mira began to complain when I held up my hand and said, Mira, do your auditory units detect the sound of an approaching helicopter? Mira affirmed, yes, my sister. The approaching airborne vehicle can only be Kostia, searching for our corporeal selves. We hastily departed the area, making sure to conceal our corporeal selves under the welcoming arbors of nearby trees. Flashback, Todd, on the mission. Where in the hell did a bull come from in the jungle? It chased one of the so-called soldiers past me, and I stifled a laugh as the bull caught the soldier, knocked him to the ground, and commenced to gore and stomp him. He cried for a couple minutes until he succumbed to the onslaught. With the bull's soldier terminated, he began to search for other targets. He pawed the ground and bellowed in anticipation. Apparently, he detected the smell of the other soldiers and charged back down the trail from which he recently entered the small clearing. I slowly and carefully followed him and about laughed my ass off when I reached the rest of the soldiers. Present, Liz and Bernie, back in Leadville. We had a great ride back to Leadville. The closer we got to Leadville, the more sure I became of our decision. It was great that Bernie felt the same way as I did. I had known Bernie almost forever, and I never dreamed we were so compatible. We drive into the Enterprise car rental lot. Bernie hauls the bags into the office from out of the trunk. The rental agent gives us a questioning look and asks, is there something wrong with the car? I smile at him and answer, the car was great. We just decided to find a place to live here, not in Denver. He responds, are you going to need the car while you look for a place here? Bernie answers, the rental agent seems to understand about us coming back to Leadville, and like a real salesman, he wants to know if we'd like to keep the car. I answer, I don't think so since we plan on using the taxi driver to help us find the people we need in Leadville. The rental agent says, well, I will have to charge you for the miles and of course today's rental. I reply, of course. Can I use your phone to call the taxi driver? He replies, sure. Let me go out and get the miles off the car, and I will be right back inside to let you know what the charges are. He goes out to the car. I look at Liz, who is literally beaming, and remark, Liz, I've never seen you look more beautiful than you do right now. Liz gives me an evil look and teases, Bernie, it's talking like that got me preggers in the first place. I tease her right back and suggest, I thought it was the horizontal tango which caused the so-called problem. But if complimenting you caused the problem, then I guess I need to stop. Liz begins to threaten, Bernie, if you do that then you can be certain that the horizontal. Liz stops and blushes as the rental agent walks back inside. He looks at Liz and asks, ma'am, are you feeling okay? I grin at Liz as she lies to keep the rental agent from guessing the real cause of the problem, while she says, thank you for asking. I'm fine, but it does feel hot in here, so I think I will wait outside. Before she leaves, I ask, hey Liz, how about giving me the business card of the taxi driver? She pulls it out of her purse and hands it to me. I walk over to the counter. The rental agent spins the phone around and says, here you go. Liz heads outside and I watch her as I get embarrassed by the rental agent, so I decide to walk outside. I breathe in the fresh mountain air and imagine this is how Julie Andrews felt when she played her role in The Sound of Music. I guess I even get carried away and begin to spin slightly with my arms outstretched. Bernie walks out of the car rental agency carrying our bags and roughly sings, the hills are alive. I grin at him and finish with The Sound of Music. He says, the taxi driver will be here in 10 minutes. He was happy to hear that we changed our minds. He also told me he would call the realtor he talked to us about. But he did give me some bad news. I worry it's going to be like the news we got about the hospital, so I automatically frown. Bernie sees my frown, laughs and says, Liz, it's not that bad. He just told me there were no new car dealers in Leadville. I guess I'm not surprised. I threaten, Bernie, keep it up and there will be no more horizontal tangos. Bernie takes my hand and calls my bluff. Oh really? I guess I will be taking many long, cold, lonely showers by myself. I I squeeze his hand and counter, what? You don't want to shower with me any longer? The taxi driver shows up before Bernie can answer. He jumps out of the taxi, loads our suitcases into the trunk, and suggests, I hope you don't mind that I called the hotel and reserved a room for the two of you. I figure we should drop your suitcases off there before we take you to the realtor. I ask, which hotel did you choose? He smiles and answers, again, I hope you don't mind, but I chose the Delaware Hotel because it's right downtown and is sort of like stepping back into the past. We can actually walk to the realtor's office from the hotel. Bernie answers, damn, that will be great. I'm tired of driving and riding in a car. I practically demand, Bernie, I'm hungry, and Bernie laughs and interrupts. When aren't you hungry? The taxi driver says, don't worry, they have many great places to eat downtown. We hop into the back of the taxi, then he drives us up to the Delaware Hotel, where a man comes out, waves and says, welcome, you must be our new guests for the night. He takes our bags out of the trunk, carries them into the hotel, we walk inside, and I'm speechless. Present, Stacy and Samantha, at the building. Sally arrives right as I finish reading Samantha the report on the Sedankina twins. We both walk downstairs. I smile at Sally, shake her hand, and ask, would you like the grand tour of the place before you get started? Sally's eyes are traveling everywhere, soaking in all the surroundings while she replies, that would be great. I motion to Bill and say, this is my right-hand man, Bill. He will show you everything. Sally leaves with Bill while I look at Samantha and ask, well, now that we've read the report on the Sedankina twins, what are your thoughts? Samantha replies, Stacy, I'm glad you stopped me from broadcasting the report. The last thing I want is to have those two after me or my camera operators. I smile at Samantha because she wisely took my advice and ask, so how do you plan on explaining it to Sally? She and her cohorts were counting on being famous. Samantha smiles and answers, Stacy, you're right, so I need to throw her a bone. If she does a good job with our beauty treatments, I will do a report on the wonderful services available in small towns. I ask, do you really think America would be interested in a report on a local beauty shop? Samantha surprises me when she answers, Stacy, I can make anything a news story. All I have to do is present it the correct way. For this, I would craft it as the story of how an independent woman moved to the mountains and created her dream job of owning her own business. With that, Sally and Bill came back, and Sally remarked, it's so good to see what you've done with this old building. We were worried when you moved here and bought the building that you were going to destroy it and build something new. You should have seen this place when it was a functioning brewery. I smile at Sally and say, this is a great old building, and my grandmama taught me the value of historic places. We have considered restarting the brewery, but none of us know anything about making beer. It sounds like you have been in Leadville for many years. Sally replies, yes, I have been here most of my life. I spent some time away when I was younger and went to school, but there's something magical about this town that called me back. And if you are serious about brewing beer, the old brewmaster still lives in town and would probably be more than happy to give you some pointers. I look at Bill and suggest, Bill, let's have a meeting later to discuss this. I would like to see some financial projections on what it would cost and whether it would be a good investment. Bill asks, Sally, if you don't mind, I would like to get the contact information for the brewmaster so I can come up with some figures for Miss Summers. Sally pulls out a business card, writes the number on the back, Bill takes it and leaves. I look at Sally and say, well, I don't want to keep you from your shop, so let's get started. I would like a manicure, a pedicure, and a trim job on my hair. What would you like, Samantha? Samantha answers, I can tell that Stacy had hit a home run with Sally and has built up a great amount of positive rapport with the town. I ask, Sally, I would like the same as Stacy. Stacy suggests, Sam, why don't you go first? Sally sets up on a table and begins to soak my hands and feet. It's been forever since I've had a maniped, slang for a manicure and pedicure, so to have one come to where I am living seems extremely decadent. I close my eyes and begin to rest as Stacy and Sally continue to talk. I notice something that smells great. I open my eyes and see the chef has brought out some snacks. I say with a pout, wouldn't you know, there's food around and I can't eat any of it because my hands are in water. Stacy offers, Sam, just tell me what you want and I will feed you. Sally says, Samantha, don't worry about it. Let's take a short break and try some of these great-looking snacks. I take my hands out of the water, dry them on a towel, then I dry my feet, walk over to the table and exclaim, don't tell me that's Chex Mix. I love Chex Mix. I load up a plate, mostly with Chex Mix, but I do add a couple of the finger sandwiches. We sit down at the table and Sally asks, so when are you going to broadcast the report from my beauty shop on the crazy women? I smile at her and tell a little lie. We went over the video, and it didn't really turn out very well. So what I would like to do instead is a report on you and how you've created your own life here in Leadville. I can immediately see our new plan makes Sally happy. I look at Stacy. She winks at me and nods her head. With my snack done, Sally begins to work on me again. Present, Mira, Ira, and Safia, on the hunt. I answer Safia's mobile telephonic unit, and can tell from the timbre of Alexi's voice he is surprised that I answered the call, and it is obvious that he also fears for his life. He recites what is obviously a very carefully prepared script. I try to ascertain some operational information from him without success. Instead, he yells, "Miranda B." He screams, and the call is terminated. I relay the message to Ira and Safia. Alexei is under extreme duress and delivered a specific script from which any deviation will result in his elimination. Safia interrupts. "No, my lovely Alexei. We must save him since he is the father of our child." Ira, exhibiting continued maintenance of anger towards Safia, answers. "I cannot believe how hormonally unbalanced Safia has become. First she wants to terminate Alexei, and now she wants to defend him." I loudly complain. "Safia, stop being a young female foundling. Of course we will save Alexei since he is our only brother. Now let Mira finish relating the instructions, then we will formulate a strategy." I worry that my hormonally challenged sister might not recall the instructions, and am slightly surprised when she parrots the instructions perfectly. Mira gives me a knowing look because we understand that the instructions leave little hope of deviation and that we are ambulating into an ambush. Safia animates her corporeal self to a standing position and demands, "Ira, what is your plan to rescue my Alexei?" I shake my cranial carapace and respond, "Safia, it is evident to Mira and me that this is a well-planned trap with no obvious deficiencies." Safia replies, "So you have no plan?" Mira reinforces, "No, Safia, there is no viable plan. We must submit to the terrible teenager's trap and hope we can overwhelm them when they let their down of guard." Safia states the obvious. "Well, let's get this over with then." I look at Mira and state, "First we must discover a location in which to secure our katanas. We must not endanger them." Mira interrupts, "Yes, I will not allow the terrible teenagers to heap insult and dishonor upon my katana." Safia questions, "I still find it hard to believe my Alexei was captured by the 304 and Yasmin since they never struck me as having the intelligence to figure out a plan for which neither Ira nor Mira could fathom an escape. I sure as hell don't like the idea of letting them capture us. Oh, why? Why did Alexei have to have sex with that 304? Wasn't I woman enough for him? I did everything he asked, even that gross oral thing he wanted. If the twins are worried about their katanas, then I need to worry about my bow, so I ask. If you two don't want the 304 and Yasmin taking your katanas, then I don't want them touching my bow." Ira agrees. "Yes, Safia, that is rational thinking for one who is so hormonally challenged. Come, we will try to locate a place to secure our weapons as we translocate to the building which houses Alexei." As we walk toward the building, I can't shake the feeling that this was a huge mistake. We find a different abandoned building and Ira suggests, "I feel this building meets the requirements for securing our weapons." We enter the building. Ira and Mira remove some boards from the floor and place their katanas in the hole. I walk over, kiss my bow, and say, "I do hope to see you again." Ira complains, "Safia, do not worry. We will prevail against the terrible teenagers since they do not possess the skills required to defeat us interminably." I caution, "Ira, I cannot help but feel we shouldn't underestimate them. They have already." Ira interrupts, "Safia, once again your hormones overload your logic. This is a temporary backup set for which they will have to recompense the flautist." With our weapons concealed, we leave the building and begin to walk up the hill on which the building sits where the 304 and Yasmin hold my Alexei. As we approach, Yasmin yells through a megaphone, "Stop where you are, drop your weapons, and remove your body armor." Ira hesitates, and we hear my Alexei scream, "Ira, if you do not do exactly as you are told, Zarika is going to blow my balls off." I glare at Ira and Mira and order, "Don't just stand around scratching your asses. Drop your weapons and strip out of your body armor." I'm the first one done, and Yasmin orders, "Safia, you may approach the building, but stop at the front door." I walk up to the front door, it slowly opens and someone says, "Get your ass inside." I walk inside and things go black. Present, Glenn, still in jail. The ambulance arrives, and the sheriff tells me, "Since there's no hospital in Leadville anymore, you two are going to need to spend the night in my jail." I glare at him and ask, "What a bit tatties and neebs and breakfast?" The sheriff answers, "I will talk to someone on the way to Denver and have them bring you some food." I sarcastically answer, "Cheers a heel, I a lot for Nathan Dauber." He flips me the bird as the ambulance departs, and he leaves. I am tired of this bullshit cell, so I began to work on the lock and hope I still remember enough of my Marine training to pick this lock. Present, Jack, Masha, and the children, flying to Denver. Masha offers to let me up by saying, "Jack, I could let you up. However, I want to remind you first of your promise to me and our children." I begin to tell her a lie. "Masha, what?" She places her finger on my lips and interrupts. Jack, my love, you should know better than to try to lie to me. You promised us that you would go to the hospital and have your back checked. I complain, Masha, my love, you know how terrible the VA hospitals are. Hell, if I go in there, I might not come out alive. Masha derails my complaint by saying, that's why you are not going to the VA hospital. I try to reason with her. Masha, we can't afford for me to go into any hospital other than a VA hospital. You know how damn expensive they are. Hell, they charge like $10 for an aspirin. Masha smiles at me and says, don't worry, my love. I talked with Jennifer, and you are going to be taken care of on the Truth Network's medical plan. I sputter, when in the hell did I? Masha interrupted me again. Jack, since we have been working for her, I made sure we were going to be taken care of. Now just relax and remember your promise as I release the straps. Masha loosens the straps. I start to sit up and wish like hell I would have stayed flat. Present, Tom and Inga flying to Denver. Inga is still making a big deal out of counting the money she earned with the trick she played on me, so I decide she deserves a bit of her own medicine. I walk up to her and demand, so when do I get my half of the money? She stops counting, looks at me, and counters, your half of the money? Why do you calculate you should get half of the money? I grin at her and answer, because I played along with your plan, that's why. She glares at me and protests, Tom, stop using revisionist history. I know you didn't have any idea what I was doing. Then her face changes into a grin and she continues, but don't worry, I will use part of this money for a present for you. From the look on her face, I'm not sure I want the present she offered to buy me, so I argue. That's okay. I would rather have the money. Inga insults me, why? So you could spend it on something or someone stupid, like those nasty little cigars you smoke, or the even nastier smelling trollops at the truck stops. What I really want to tell her is I want to buy a gift for her with the money. However, this has become too much of a struggle, so I say before I turn away, forget about it. Wow. Tom surprises me with his reaction to me not giving him any of the money. What he doesn't know is I have plans to use it for matching gifts for the two of us. That, and getting myself all fixed up. As he leaves, I do feel bad about all the fighting we've done lately, and decide I need to make it up to him. Present, Alexei, captured. I cannot believe it. Things are worse than I ever dreamed they could be. How in the world can we ever escape this problem I created? Flashback, Jack and Ben, the trip to hell. On the way to the hospital, under fire. The insurgents kept boiling out of the hospital like ants swarming out of a disturbed anthill. We were smoking them, but they didn't seem to care. Ben shouted, Jack, the insurgents are hopped up on some sort of narcotic. I yelled back, probably heroin or speed. There's no way we can hold all of these narcotic-fueled scumsuckers off for 10 minutes. We need to do a tactical retreat. I looked at the butter bar and ordered, you and the squad take off while Ben and I keep the insurgents busy. He argued, Sergeant Reynolds, there is no way we're leaving you and Sergeant Blaine here alone. This isn't a suicide mission, and I'm sure as hell not going to lose the two of you on my first command. His next order surprised the hell out of me. The butter bar sure as hell earned my respect when he fired up the squad by repeating the quote made famous by GYSGT. Dan Daly, November 11th, 1873 to April 27th, 1937, one of 19 men, including 7 Marines, to have received the Medal of Honor twice. He uttered these famous words in the Battle of Belleau Woods during World War I, right before charging the Germans. Come on, you sons of a bitches. Do you want to live forever? We were taking hellacious fire, but returned even more. The dead insurgents began to pile up like dead ants at the entrance to an anthill when attacked with a magnifying glass. This was a good thing because it slowed down the ones coming through the door. I had switched to my M4, but quickly picked up my sniper rifle and worked on taking out 2 at a time with one shot. I was surprised as hell when I shot one of them, and the whole area exploded, taking down 10 of the scumsuckers. Shit, the insurgent was wearing a suicide vest. Jack yelled, don't let them get close. Some are wearing suicide vests. Another 2 of the scumsuckers exploded, and they were close enough to us by now that the ground shook around our feet. I fired and took out 3 with one shot, and Jack praised my good fortune. Hell of a shot, Ben. We finally heard the choppers, and the butter bar ordered, quick, get the VS. Bright orange cloth panels displayed by troops to indicate they are friendly forces. Panels out so they know we are friendlies. Some of the squad draped the wall with the VS panels while the choppers came in and opened up on the insurgents. It was glorious. The helicopter gunships kept the insurgents busy while a couple of Blackhawks took up positions close to the ground behind us, and reinforcements roped down to the ground and even offloaded crates of ammo. The helicopter gunships found another 3 of the scumsuckers who wore suicide vests during their attacks. I was concerned when the helicopter gunships left because there were still more of the scumsuckers. A captain from the reinforcements dropped next to me behind the wall and ordered, everyone keep your heads down. I understood why the helicopter gunships left when the area the insurgents held in front of us was raked by a hailstorm of bullets. The captain smiled at me and said, "Gotta love those AC-130s. Gunship is a heavily armed ground attack aircraft variant of the C-130 Hercules transport plane. The basic airframe is manufactured by Lockheed, while Boeing is responsible for the conversion into a gunship and for aircraft support. The AC-130A gunship II superseded the AC-47 gunship I during the Vietnam War. They make our jobs easy." The AC-130 made a couple more passes, then the captain ordered, "Okay, let's go take this hospital." I began to get up, but the captain touched my shoulder and ordered, "Not you, Sergeant Blaine. You and Sergeant Reynolds stay here and provide overwatch." I pointed at the only other tall building that was standing and suggested, "Sir, we could provide better overwatch if we were on top of that building." The captain countered, "There is no way, Sergeant Blaine, that I'm letting you enter a building because more aftershocks are expected. You stay here, with Sergeant Reynolds and 2 Marines to cover your sixes. Make sure none of the scumsuckers shoot at us from the windows." I motioned to Jack. He came over beside me, set up his spotting scope, and began to scan the hospital. The captain, our squad, and the reinforcements sprinted toward the hospital. Jack yelled, "Ben, scumsucker on the roof." I swung up my rifle, scoped him. Jack ranged me, but instead of screwing with the scope turrets, I did a holdover and fired. Jack narrated, "Hell of a shot. You blew half the scumsucker's face away." I swore. Shit, I was aiming at his chest. I pulled my sniper rifle down, looked at it, and realized I hadn't returned the elevation turret to 0. I just got lucky as hell to hit the scumsucker. I zeroed the elevation and waited. We didn't wait long until there was a shot that hit the wall in front of us. Jack swore, "Where the hell did that come from?" We were answered when the 2 Marines behind us alerted, "Scumsuckers on our 6." I looked at Jack and said, "I'll cover the hospital. You help the Marines on our 6." Jack spun around and swore, "Shit, we never did dig those foxholes." He crawled behind some debris, and I did likewise as I couldn't believe what happened next. Those mother scumsuckers. I began to kill them with the most extreme prejudice. Flashback, Masha, another lonely night. I continued to dwell on the possibility of taking care of more children until boredom overtook me. With Louise, Linda, and Ms. Ray gone, the house felt interminably empty. I looked at a map I had found at the Market of Things to Do downtown and decided I would go watch a movie tonight. I didn't even care what it was. I just wanted to be out of the house. I slightly adjusted my makeup, made sure my clothes were still presentable, remembered Ben's admonition, and added 1 extra item to my purse, which I hoped I would not have to use. I walked out the door, made sure it was locked, and mentally prayed, "God, please keep me and our house safe tonight." Then I walked toward the bus stop which Ben noted on his map, easily found the bus stop, entered the bus, paid my fare, which seemed extremely high compared to Russia. Took one look at the people on the bus and realized Ben's admonition should have been more emphatic. I do not recall seeing such a wretched group of people ever in Russia. Thank God I found an empty seat, pulled a plastic bag out of my purse and placed it on the seat so I would not contaminate my clothing. I sat at the very edge of my seat and hoped no one would want to acquire the seat adjacent to me. Old skills came to the fore, and my senses were alert to every sound and movement. This was not going to be a pleasant trip. Flashback, Glenn and Jennifer, a big mess. I parked my car as close as I could to Evelyn's car, walked over and noted that as I had trained her, Jennifer had locked all the doors. I waved at her. She leaned over and unlocked the driver's door. I climbed in and Jennifer said, "Daddy, while you were gone I searched everywhere, but couldn't find the parking ticket." I started Evelyn's car and headed toward the exit. Then I answered, "Jennifer, thanks for doing that, but I'm sure your mother did that on purpose just to aggravate me." Jennifer answered with a very adult remark, "Geez Louise. Sometimes I wondered who the real child was in our family. Mother had been acting like a spoiled brat ever since we checked her out of the hospital. First giving us narcotics to make us sick, and now taking the stupid parking ticket." I was upset and remarked, "Daddy, I don't understand your wife. Sometimes she drives me crazy." Daddy laughed and answered, "Jennifer, if you think it's bad being her child, you should try being married to her." I dramatically and falsely, retched, and with too much sarcasm replied, "No frickin' thank you. When I marry my man, I will make sure I never act like mother." I could tell I unintentionally hurt Daddy when he sadly replied, "Jennifer, not everything your mother has done has been bad, and you do need to remember, she is your mother." I replied, "Sorry Daddy for offending you, but sometimes she frustrates the heck out of me." Daddy didn't answer because we reached the ticket booth. Daddy explained the situation the best he could to the ticket agent, who looked at Daddy and said, "Sorry sir, but rules are rules, and without the ticket I will have to charge you the maximum, which equals 4 24-hour days." Daddy asked, "So what's the damage?" It seemed like it took the ticket agent forever to calculate the charge. Then he said, "It will be $215. I watched as Daddy's face turned red and worried that he was going to explode. But then he calmly pulled his wallet out of his pocket, took out a charge card, handed it to the ticket agent, and said, "Put it on this." The ticket agent ran Daddy's card, looked at Daddy, and said, "Sorry, sir. Your card was declined because you're over your limit." Daddy finally had enough and exploded. "God damn it. Evelyn, what in the hell have you done?" Daddy took out another personal card, handed it to the ticket agent, and apologized. "Sorry about that. My wife left us and left the car in the lot without telling us where it was. It took us this long to figure it out." The ticket agent looked at Daddy. Then he smiled and commented, "General Donaldson, I didn't recognize you until you exploded. Do you know you're entitled to a discount for being in the service?" "Yes. We finally had some good news." Daddy asked, "Will it save us much money?" The ticket agent informed, "Hell yes, you get a 50% discount." The agent ran Daddy's personal credit card, which of course worked, and I learned that I should always have some personal money when I marry my Ben, handed Daddy the revised bill which he quickly signed. Then, as a whim, he asked, "I don't suppose I could ask you to help me get my car out of the lot." The agent looked at the time and said, "I'm off in another 10 minutes and would be glad to help you. I don't know if you remember me." Daddy impressed me as he interrupted, "Of course I remember you. When you were active duty, I knew you as Corporal Connors." We waited for former Corporal Connors to get off work, and I realized that knowing the right people could be a big benefit. Flashback, Alexei, at the laboratory. After Chow Main's escape, the orderlies escorted me back to my room, put me inside, and warned, "Alexei, do not leave this room until Chow Mein is once again captured." The orderlies were easy to fool, so I faked some tears and requested, "Can I please see my father? I am worried that Chow Mein might have seriously injured him." They told me that they would tell my father I wanted to see him, then they left to help capture Chow Mein. When they left, I went into the bathroom and laughed, because once again Chow Mein was terrorizing the hospital. This was better than I ever dreamed. I did not stay too long in the bathroom, went to my bed, extracted my notebook, and began to document the current situation with Chow Mein until I was greatly surprised. Flashback, Mira and Ira, back in Kazakhstan. We continued our escape beneath the arbors. While in transit, I oculated my sister and inquired, "Ira, how do you propose we escape Kostia's aerial pursuit?" She shocked me when she suggested, "Mira, I propose we terminate his helicopter. We will find an area in which he cannot reasonably oculate our corporeal selves, then we will deliver a terrifying terminal discharge from our rifles accurately directed at the turbine of his helicopter." I did not, at the current time, possess heart sufficient to explain to my sister Ira the huge fallacy in her plan. Flashback, Todd, on the mission. After my experience with the bull, I carefully followed him to where the other soldiers were located, and I had kept from laughing, not that it would have caused enough noise for them to hear me. The bull had them all in the trees. Yeah, he had treated them like a hound trees a coon. Not only that, being the excellent soldiers they considered themselves, all their weapons were on the ground below the trees. The bull was currently engaged with goring and stomping the hell out of the dead tiger. That was until one of the brilliant soldiers had the great idea to throw a piece of a limb at the bull. I have to say, he had a hell of an arm. He bounced the limb off the bull's head, which only served to piss the bull off even more. He already had a bad attitude, and remind him about the men in the trees. The soldiers also began to laugh when they should have kept quiet. The greatly infuriated bull bellowed loudly, charged the trees, and began to ram them and tear into them with his blood-tipped, from encounters with the other soldiers and the dead tiger, horns. The bull was shaking the hell out of the trees and damn near knocked some of the soldiers out of the trees. Instead of keeping quiet in hope that the bull would leave, the soldiers began to rain limbs, branches, and fruit upon the bull. He rammed the trees even harder and actually shook one of the soldiers from his perch. He tumbled to the ground, and remarkably, the bull saw him falling and met him as he hit the ground. A few tosses of the bull's head and another soldier bit the dust. I was disappointed when the soldiers finally wised up and got quiet. I decided the bull needed to have some more fun, so I pulled up my suppressed pistol, took careful aim, and drilled one of the lower soldiers in the leg. He screamed, let go of the branch, and fell to the ground. Mr. Bull was there waiting for him and again made short work of him. The other soldiers yelled at the bull, which only infuriated it even more. I pulled up my pistol again, shot another of the idiots, and when he fell, his foot got caught in a low branch. However, the branch was low enough for the bull to reach. The bull began to bounce him around like a human piñata, and he lasted even less time. The others began to cry, and several of them even pissed their pants. 2 bold soldiers became 2 dead soldiers when they dropped out of the tree and tried to run away. I slowly eliminated the rest of the so-called soldiers. With his adversaries gone, the bull looked around, pawed the ground, and ran off down the trail. I slowly slipped out of my hiding place and silently followed him, keeping all my senses at their peak for whatever crazy animal showed up next. Present, Liz and Bernie, back in Leadville. We are back in Leadville, which we never should have left, back with the taxi driver who's been such a help, and this time he suggested accommodations. Hell, he already booked a room for us, called the Delaware Hotel. We are met at the car by one of the hotel staff. We follow him into the hotel, and I am shocked. It's like we've traveled backward in time. To one side is a small gift shop with the typical Colorado memorabilia, such as we've seen in most of the stores in Leadville. The rest of the lobby is filled with high-end gifts, jewelry, and antiques, many of which are for sale. I walked through the lobby and imagined the many guests whom had stayed here. The staffer who brought our luggage in was behind the front desk, so I walk up and ask, "Which room do we have?" He smiles at us and answers, "You have the Baby Doe Tabor suite." He continues to describe how the local miner, Baby Doe Tabor, would come down from her matchless mine each day to the hotel, where she had a room. She would sit at the desk in her room and talk to friends all day, and then when night approached she would walk back to her mine. I am ready to see our room, so I ask, "I'm a little tired and would like to refresh myself before we have dinner." He smiles again and answers, "Let me take you to your room." We begin to climb the stairs and I complain, "Don't you have an elevator?" I am surprised and a little sad when he answers, "Sorry, they've talked about putting one in. However, they haven't found the space for one yet." I am winded. Hey, it's almost 10,000 feet in elevation and I'm preggers. So I ask, "Can I take a short break?" Bernie proudly informs our companion, "Sorry, but Liz is pregnant." The man apologizes, "I'm so sorry. If we had known that, we would have tried to find you a room on the first floor. The problem is they're all smaller." I blush and say, "No, this will be fine. I only need a moment to catch my breath." We continue, finally make it to our floor, walk toward our room, and the hallway is lined with display cases housing many Victorian dresses. I see one particular dress which almost makes me drool, so I look at Bernie and practically beg, "Bernie, I want that dress." Bernie, being a mere male, has the audacity to ask, "Liz, what do you need that dress for?" I glare at him and announce, "For our wedding, if you still want to marry me." Bernie hugs me and says, "Liz, of course I want to marry you." He pauses slightly, then continues, "Oh yeah, your wedding dress was in our room at the cabin, so it's gone, but I'm not sure if this dress is for sale." I anxiously look at the man. He smiles and brightens the day. "Yes, ma'am. All the dresses you see are for sale. And if you're looking for a place for a wedding, we do have a reception hall, which would be perfect." I squeeze Bernie, look at him with my best pleading eyes, smile, and ask, "Bernie?" Bernie interrupts. Damn, I've never seen Liz this excited. It's like she's a little girl. Of course I will give her anything she wants, other than a fiasco of an outdoor wedding such as the one for Ben and Jennifer. I interrupt, "Liz, that would make a great wedding dress, and if you want to have it here in the hotel, I agree." I look at the front desk clerk and ask, "So when is the soonest we can schedule our wedding?" He answers, "I will check when I get back at the front desk and call your room with the available dates and the price of the dress." Liz gets sassy with him and teases, "I see I'm not the only one that doesn't like climbing these stairs." The desk clerk laughs, "Well, if you climbed them all day like I do, you would look for an occasional break." He opens the door to the room. We walk inside and Liz says, "Bernie, this room is great." The desk clerk leaves. Liz suggests with a wink, I know she wants to get frisky again, "Bernie, why don't we get room service instead of going out for dinner?" I get ready to call the front desk when Liz's mobile phone rings. She looks at it and swears, "Damn it to hell. What now?" Present, Samantha and Stacy at the building. Now this is living. A great snack from Stacy's chef, then being pampered by Sally feels wonderful. She finishes my maniped, begins to trim my hair, and suggests, "Samantha, you should really consider coloring your hair." I'm a little bit concerned about why she feels that way, so I ask, "Why is that, Sally? I like the color of my hair." Sally explains, "The color of your hair isn't consistent, so what I would do is even it up." Stacy agrees. I think Sally is right since I've often thought that myself. Besides, I get my hair colored on a regular basis. Then Sally suggests something more than a little crazy. "You know, if we colored your hair just right and gave you the right haircut, you would look remarkably like your namesake." Stacy laughs, and I complain, "Sally, if you knew how hard I worked when I was a child to not be associated with Elizabeth Montgomery and the stupid Bewitched television show, you wouldn't even suggest that thought." Stacy doesn't help when she laughs. "What? Don't you want to be a witch?" I decide two can play this game and answer, "Well, if I was a witch, I would twitch my nose and turn you into a frog. However, I do like the idea of making my hair color consistent." Stacy continues to laugh. I thought princes were turned into frogs and princesses were turned into unicorns. I counter, I didn't know you were a princess. Sally interrupts our silliness. Well, I'm not set up here to do color work, so why don't you come to the shop tomorrow and I will take care of both of you. Stacy answers my question. Well, I'm close enough to being a princess and I could probably buy the title if I really wanted to waste a bunch of money. Stacy pauses for a moment and continues. Sally, is there a nice clothes store in town? Something with some of the newer fashions? Sally answers. Well, we have Leadville clothing and apparel and Melanzana, but they both lean more toward the outdoor or ski clothing. I wonder what Stacy is thinking as she bites her lower lip. I was afraid of that. I really wanted to update Samantha's clothing since hers were getting a little worn looking. But she needed more than the typical Leadville look of flannel and denim I had seen around town. Sally finishes with Samantha, looks at me, laughs, and says, now I need to see what I can do with the unicorn's hair. I really like Sally's sense of humor, laugh and reply, well, don't forget the full treatment for my hooves. I sit in the chair and enjoy Sally's ministrations. She really is good at this. Then she complains, Stacy, have you been biting your nails? Samantha laughs and teases, Stacy, unicorns should know better. I blush and confess. Normally, I don't, however I did when I got drunk after the wedding. Sally pounces on the comment. Do you mean? Thank God Samantha interrupts. Sally, that's a subject that we don't talk about. Sally shrugs her shoulders, obviously disappointed, and says, no problem with me. Now, what time tomorrow are you coming into the shop? Because I have plans for tomorrow, I ask. How about right after you open, because we're going to be busy the rest of the day. Sally offers, if you would like I could open at 8. Samantha asks, Stacy, what are we doing tomorrow? I answer Sally, and then Samantha, Sally, that would be great. How much time will it take? And Samantha, what we are doing tomorrow is for me to know and for you to find out. Samantha fakes a pout and then suggests an alternate course of action. Well, if no one minds, I think I will finish off the Chex Mix. We both answer negatively and Samantha begins to chow down. I fondly remember the time when I could eat whatever I wanted without gaining weight. That seemed so very long ago, and perhaps in a galaxy far, far away. Present, Safia, Mira, and Ira. The hunters become the prey. Whwa? What happened to me? The last thing I remember is walking into the building. Then everything went black. Now I am lying on the floor in only my underwear, with my hands and legs restrained, and some sort of nasty thing in my mouth to keep me from talking. Some fat scumsucker leans over me, pokes me, and says, yes, you and your baby will bring us a tidy profit. I begin to cry as the fat scumsucker laughs, so I turn my head toward the right, and I can't believe who I see unconscious beside me. I slowly waken from my forced stupor and realize I have been stripped of my outer accoutrements. I am restrained on the floor and have a ball gag in my oral cavity. The last thought I cognate was entering the building and oculating Safia prone upon the floor. I begin to struggle against my restraints when some obese male comes over and pokes my Ben's progeny. I writhe with a greater intensity as the obese male elucidates. Now you're a fiery one, but not as much trouble as your twin sister. She hurt 2 of my men before we kicked her ass. He indicates the direction past a likewise restrained Safia, so I rise up slightly and see an equally subdued, restrained, and surprisingly nude Ira. He roughly forces my corporeal self back to a reclining position onto the firmament and states, your baby, and then your body will be worth many dollars. I begin to again writhe on the floor when the obese male leans over me and jabs me with an electronic cattle control device. In response, I jump and feel my Ben's progeny jump within me. He laughs and elucidates, you might as well get used to it, because to us you're just like another cow. Besides, if you continue to resist me, I will begin to shock your sister or brother. Alexei. The evil obese man has Alexei. I desist in my attempt to escape. He notates the recognition in my eyes and continues, yes, we also have your brother and plan on selling him like the rest of you. He indicates an opposing direction with his primary digit, so I rotate my cranial carapace and oculate a similarly trussed Alexei. Then this situation becomes maximally untenable. Present, Yasmin and Zarika, the plan is almost completed. I was surprised how easily Boris's men captured Safia and the twins. They had them enter the building one at a time and then used tasers on them until they were unconscious. Ira, however, almost escaped. When she was tossed, she swept her arm across her body and knocked the electrical probes out of her skin. Then she ferociously attacked the man who tossed her. When 2 more men simultaneously tossed her, she couldn't defeat them, and they unmercifully continued to shock her until she made a mess out of her cloths. Next, they stripped Safia and the twins down to their underwear and were surprised when they found many hidden weapons. They tied them very securely and even used handcuffs and manacles on them, then waited for them to awaken. Now that they were awake, it was time for Zarika and me to have some fun. I move over in front of Safia. She glares at me, and I laugh. So you thought you were going to kill us? Well, here's a big surprise for you. Your precious Alexei who assaulted Zarika, and the twins are going to be sold as some rich person's play toys. She began to squirm on the floor, then Boris came over shocked her with the cattle prod. When she about jumped into the air, he ordered, "Stop moving, or you will get more of this, you stupid 304. Yes, the only thing which would have made this better is if we could have included the Jennifer Donaldson bitch. I'm not sure I'm totally comfortable with Yasmin's plan. Had I known we were going to sell all of them into sexual slavery, especially Alexei, I certainly would have stopped the plan because I knew how terrible it was being a sexual slave. This reminded me too much of my time with Hussein, from which Ben rescued me. However, Yasmin motioned me over to taunt Safia, and I couldn't resist. I walk over to where Safia can see me and announce, "You can all thank Alexei for this situation since he assaulted me, got me pregnant." Then he left me for Safia. Alexei begins to squirm on the floor. Boris comes over and shocks him with the cattle prod, so I complain, "Stop doing that to him." Boris laughs and replies, "What the hell? Don't tell me you still have feelings for him, because just a little while ago you were going to blow his balls off." I glare at Boris and answer, "That's right, but I think I've changed my mind. You can have the other 3, but I want to keep Alexei." Boris laughs and says, "That wasn't the agreement we had with Yasmin." I counter, "That's right, so now I'm changing the agreement." Yasmin cautions, "Zarika, don't do this." I ignore her warning, point my rifle at Boris and announce, "Here's the new agreement. You can have Safia, who I hope rots in hell, and the twins, but you can't have Alexei." I hear a pop, then crackling noises as I fall to the floor. I also hear someone screaming, "Present, Glenn, get out of jail, not so free." I continue to work on the lock for this cell, using the knife I kept from one of my meals. That's right, they sure as hell didn't know all there is about keeping prisoners, since they didn't bother to count the utensils from our meals and make sure we didn't take some of them. I finally start to get the lock to budge, but then the sheriff walks back into the office, sees what I'm doing, laughs and says, "Hell, you must not be much of a lock picker if you haven't escaped by now." I reply, "I'm a bit out of practice. How's your deputy?" The sheriff walks over, unlocks the cell, and says, "You're free to go, but I'm not sure where you're headed." "And thanks for asking. My deputy's fine. I reckon his head's as tough as a rock." I glance at Hammer, still knocked out cold, and say, "Can he be any harder than Hammer's head? So what are your plans for him?" The sheriff scratches his chin and asks, "Were you serious when you told me about his drinking problem?" I nod, serious as a heart attack. The sheriff, showing some trust in me, responds, "I think it's best if Hammer stays here for now. Why don't you come back tomorrow, and we'll have a word with him about his drinking." I ask, "What time should I show up?" The sheriff says, "Let's make him suffer a bit. How about 3 in the afternoon? You know, I never did find those girls who escaped from my jail." I chuckle at the suffer comment, but I know Hammer needs it to face his problem, and reply, "They're trained assassins. You were lucky to catch 2 of them without getting killed. If I were you, I wouldn't be chasing after them." He offers, "With my deputy out of commission, how about giving me a hand?" I raise both hands defensively and refuse. "Nay, nay, but hell nay. I don't want to kick that hornet's nest." The sheriff threatens, "I could always make your release depend on helping me." I honestly reply, "If you do that, then I'd rather stay in jail." The sheriff looks confused, whistles, and says, "Wow, you must be serious about those girls." I respond again, serious as a heart attack. He says, "Well, I might take your advice. It's just that they shot up Sally's beauty shop, and I sure as hell don't want them running around my town with those automatic weapons. Anyway, you're free to go." I step out of the jail, inhaling the sweet smell of freedom. Present, Jack, Tom, Inga, Masha, and the children, flying to Denver. Masha finally lets me loose. I begin to sit up. My back makes a snapping noise which hurts like hell. I fall back on the stretcher and begin to swear, "Son of a..." I stop when I see my son Ivan standing close. He giggles and teases, "Papa, almost say a bad word." Masha's face shows her concern as she grabs my hand and asks, "Jack, my love, what is wrong?" I fake a smile and tell her, "Masha, it's nothing. My back." I'm interrupted when I notice Tom and Inga are here, and Inga asks, "Jack, was that you who screamed?" Ivan giggles again and repeats, "Papa, almost say bad word." I do love my children, but sometimes they can be a pain in my ass. I ignore Ivan and answer, "Yeah, my back went snap when I try to sit up." Inga offers, "I know some treatments which might help your back." Masha has hope in her eyes as she answers for me, "Inga, if you could help my Jack, we would be eternally grateful." Inga looks at me, looks around the plane and says, "The first thing we need to do is get Jack higher into the air. Tom, please help me put the stretcher on the gurney." Inga takes one end of the stretcher, Tom the other end. They pick me up and Tom complains, "Damn Jack, When did you get so fat? Ivan, who is still here, giggles and says, Mr. Tom, say bad word. He owe me $1. They set me on the gurney, and Tom replies, it's your fat father's fault, so get the money from him. Now it's my turn, so I complain to Tom, me fat? That's like the pot calling the kettle black. What have you gained since you left the army? 50 pounds. I almost laugh as Tom tries to suck in his gut and says, I haven't gained any weight. Inga giggles and says, black. There now, if you two are finished with your quarrel, I need some help turning Jack over. Oh, thumb. Tom comes over. He and Inga carefully perform a log roll on me, then slide me forward so my face isn't on the stretcher. I'm amazed that the movement doesn't hurt much. Inga asks, Masha, do you mind if we remove Jack's shirt? Once again, Masha answers for me. Of course not, Inga. Let me help you. They don't seem to take into consideration that I'm even here. Tom rudely suggests, hell, it's damn near worn out. Why don't you just cut it off him? I sarcastically reply, how about keeping the comments from the peanut gallery to yourself? Tom acts insulted and pouts. Well, if I'm not needed. Inga interrupts. Tom, don't you dare leave. We might need you. Masha and Inga remove the shirt from me, which only causes a little extra pain. Then Inga says, Jack, I'm sorry, but there is no easy way to do what I need to do next. This is going to hurt. Inga begins to press on my back, and she's more than right since it hurts like hell. In response, I try to move. Inga orders, Tom, hold him down to keep him from moving. Tom roughly grabs me, which hurts more than Inga's treatment, so I complain, Tom, get your hands off me. I promise I won't move. Tom says, have it your way, you angry old fart. Ivan giggles again and states, now at $2. Inga continues her probing of my back and asks, Jack, did your back have disc damage? I reply before Masha can. Yeah, I was tossed around during a flight to Iraq, and some big Marine fell on top of me and twisted the hell out of my back. Plus my rear, I remember Ivan, was damaged by a piece of shrapnel. Masha adds more information. Unlike our situation now, with the great job Jennifer has given my Jack, he had to keep working because at the time we could not have lived on a medical retirement pay. Tom insults, damn. I thought the Marines took better care of their own. Ivan giggles again and says, Mr. Tom now owe me $3 whole. Inga complains, Tom, stop being such a problem. We're surprised at what Tom does next. Well, I've had my fill of this bullshit about swearing. Hell, Ivan is a Marine's kid, so he should be used to it by now. I whip out my wallet, pull out $10, hand it to Ivan, and ask for confirmation. So now with this payment, can I swear 7 more times? Ivan giggles, and the little brat corrects him. No, Mr. Tom, you said another bad word, so you can only use 6 more. Inga, Masha, and even the old fart Jack laugh at me about that. I grin and swear. Hell. Then I'm shockingly interrupted by, Tom is insultingly swearing in front of Ivan, and I do not like it. There is only one way I know to make Tom shut his mouth. He's right behind me, so I spin around and give him a big kiss. Ivan giggles and says, Inga, give Tom big kiss. When they have wedding like Auntie Jennifer and Uncle Ben. Tom pulls away and sputters, what in the hell? Because he swears again, I grab him around the back of the neck and give him another kiss. When he pulls away, I tell him, I've decided every time you swear in front of Ivan, I will kiss you in retribution. Masha praises my action. Thank you, Inga. Tom was upsetting me, and I was going to punish him. Ivan giggles and says, Mama going to make Mr. Tom stand in the corner. Tom starts to open his mouth, looks at me. I grin at him. He shuts his mouth, and I continue to assess Jack. I am finished and announce, Jack, I think I can help you. Tom, please assist me in turning and positioning Jack. Tom states, only if you promise not to kiss me again. I grin at Tom and say, well, you haven't sworn again, so you're safe for now. Tom helps me position Jack, and I can tell the movement obviously causes him pain. We have him in position, but he needs to be distracted, so I motion to Masha. She comes closer, and I whisper, Masha, when I nod at you, please kiss Jack to distract him. Jack frowns and asks, what are you two cooking up? I nod at Masha, and she kisses Jack. I force my leg down on his bent leg and push his shoulders back. His back makes many cracking noises. Jack jumps on the stretcher, then looks up at me and says, hey, my back feels better. But why did you have Masha kiss me? I giggle and answer, because you needed to be distracted. Now we need to do the other side. Oh, thumb. Tom comes over. We place Jack on his other side. I put his bottom leg straight, bend his upper leg, get ready, and without even a warning, Masha kisses Jack. I push down on his knee with mine and push his shoulders back. This side of his back pops even more, and Jack says, wow, that's great. Now let me stand to see how I feel. I'm not done yet, so I order, not yet, Jack. I'm not complete. Oh, thumb. We set Jack's stretcher on the floor, and I inform him, now comes your massage. I begin to take off my shoes, and Masha asks, do not tell me you are using your feet. I make sure my feet are clean and answer, of course I will be using my feet. You have not lived until you have had a geisha foot massage. I begin the massage as Jack remarks, "This is the best feeling massage I have ever had." I look over, notice the look on Tom's face, and stick out my tongue at him. Flashback, Ben and Jack, the trip to hell, at the hospital. I couldn't believe it. The scumsuckers began to push the nurses and doctors out the windows, so I was past pissed off and into total annihilation mode. My stomach was a mess from seeing the senseless carnage. I yelled for Jack, "Jack, I need your eyes over here." He complained, "Damn, Ben, we have a shitload of scumsuckers on our six. I'm not sure I can break free." I ordered, "Jack, I don't give a rat's ass about the scumsuckers behind us. They can kill us for all I care. I need you here now." Jack crawled over beside me just as I took out another scumsucker. Unfortunately, it was right after he pushed a nurse out the window. Jack recognized it and swore, "Those sons of a bitches, they pushed a live nurse out the window. What do you need me to do?" I said, "There are too many of the scumsuckers for me to handle. So fire up that M25 of yours and help me take out the scumsuckers before they can push all the nurses and doctors out the windows." With Jack's assistance, we were able to stop some, but unfortunately not all of the scumsuckers. Every nurse or doctor that hit the ground added to the knots in my stomach. Hell, just when I thought I had seen every sort of evil in the world, something new was added. One of the Marines watching our six yelled, "We could sure use Jack's rifle here again." I looked over my shoulder and was shocked with what I saw. We were damn close to being overrun. I looked at Jack and said, "As much as I hate to do it, we have to pull off killing the scumsuckers in the hospital and take care of the scumsuckers behind us, or we're not going to make it." As if to emphasize the point, one of the other Marines' shot detonated a suicide vest. The scumsucker was close enough that the ground shook and we were pelted with rocks. Jack swore, "Screw this shit." We both spun around and began to kick some more ass, but even over the din of the firefight, I swore I heard the screams of the doctors and the nurses as they were pushed out the windows. We were surprised when a bunch more Marines showed up and began to help us. I turned around to start taking care of the scumsuckers in the hospital, but realized it was too late. With the added help, we chased the scumsucker rats back into their rat holes, and things were remarkably quiet. I gave Jack a grim look and said, "I'm heading over to the hospital." Jack answered, "Hell, Ben is screwed up. It had to be from the scumsuckers pushing the doctors and nurses out of the windows. He sometimes lets that sort of shit get to him." I tried to settle the situation. "Hell, Ben, there was nothing any of us could do about." Ben glared at me and interrupted, "Like hell, Jack, we didn't have the intel we needed. This whole mission was one huge Mongolian cluster shit. If things don't start going better, hell, I don't know what I'll do." I sure as hell didn't like it when Ben got this way. Since I remembered what happened in Russia when he took off, I cautioned, "Ben, make sure you don't go off the deep end like you did in Russia." Ben grinned at me, but I sure as hell hated what he said next. Flashback, Masha, a rude introduction to America. So far my worries were unfounded. The people on the bus, who originally watched me, went back to reading their papers or looking at their mobile phones. I questioned what so many of them found so very interesting on their phones, especially as I observed an occasional period of mirth cross their faces. I no sooner began to relax than the bus stopped and a large mixed group of boisterous young teenagers entered the bus. The other passengers on the bus began to shrink from the teenagers who came up to them and bothered them for money. If the passengers did not provide the boisterous teenagers money, the teenagers would continue the verbal assault on the passenger until they complied. I had tried to remain invisible, however that did not last. Several of the girls came up to me and began to verbally accost me. The female ringleader said, "A woman dressed as nice as you should be able to help us out by giving us at least $20. I looked at her and inadvertently added to the confrontation, "It would require more than that for you to purchase suitable clothing." The two other girls with her laughed, and one of them asked, "Are you going to let her disrespect you like that, Francis?" Francis glared at me and threatened, "I bet this bitch won't be as mouthy after we strip her and the guys have their way with her." That was all I needed to hear. Francis began to call the guys over, so I reached into my purse, withdrew my tactical baton, flicked my wrist so it extended, stood up, and struck Francis on the side of her face. She screamed and fell to the floor. The other girls were not so brave and started to run, so I struck them on the back of the legs, and they also screamed and fell to the floor. The guys came over and one of them threatened, "You shouldn't ought to do that to our girls. Now we will have to mess up that pretty face of yours." Another added, "But that ain't going to happen until we assault you until you can't walk." The first one began to reach into his coat. I didn't wait to see what he was going to bring out as I instantly attacked all three of them. I used my tactical baton to rain blows on them as fast as I could swing it. One attempted to grab me, so I swung my purse, to which I had added several billiard balls Jack had in the garage, and came down upon his arm. His bone was instantly shattered, and he fell to the floor and swore. I determined he was under the influence of narcotics when even with the broken arm he tried to reach my leg with his good arm. So I promptly kicked his nose as hard as possible as I continued to rain blows upon the other two. As my purse worked as such an effective weapon on the first assailant, I decided to use it to beat the other two teenage boys into submission. I landed 2 blows on the first teenager's head, which rendered him unconscious when the last teenage boy standing backed up, raised his hands and begged, "Please don't hurt me." I relaxed my guard slightly, but continued to intensely watch him. He tried to slip his hand inside his coat, so I approached him and hit him over the head with my purse, which rendered him unconscious. With all the adversaries disabled, I was shocked when I heard clapping. I carefully switched my view to the other passengers, who were praising me. Several of them approached the disabled teenagers and began to remove items from them. The bus quickly pulled to the side of the road. There were sirens and flashing lights. Then one of the passengers announced, "It's the police." I was shocked when one of the passengers broke out a side window and jumped out. Many of the rest of the passengers followed the first one. For a brief moment I considered following them, but decided it was better if I stayed on the bus. The bus doors opened and the police entered the bus with their weapons drawn. I held up my hands, kneeled on the floor, and the policemen rapidly restrained me with handcuffs. One of the policemen said, "Damn, what happened to these teenagers? Call an ambulance and take her outside with the rest of them." The other policeman helped me up, escorted me outside where I saw the rest of the passengers, the ones that tried to escape through the broken window, detained in handcuffs. He ordered me, "Stay here with everyone else and don't try to run away." One of the passengers came beside me. She was an older black woman and said, "I want to thank you for taking care of those young punks. I hope you don't get in much trouble for it." I was surprised at her words, so I asked, "Why would I get into trouble? They threatened me, so I simply defended myself." The lady laughed and said, "Honey, you're not from this country. You're a grown woman, and those were teenagers." The police took the teenage girls off the bus. Francis pointed at me and accused, "There she is. That's the bitch that attacked us." I moved toward her and countered, "That is not what happened. A policeman interrupted me. "Ma'am, don't come any closer to this child." I interrupted the policeman. "She is not a child. She is a hooligan." The policeman ordered, "Ma'am, if you persist in your current actions, I will be forced to restrain you further." Francis and the other girls left. 3 ambulances arrived for the teenage boys, and the medical technicians took them off the bus. Finally, the policeman who ordered me taken off the bus came up to me and said, "Ma'am, can you tell me what happened?" I described everything to him. He looked at me and said, "That doesn't agree with what the teenagers told me." I began to complain. He held up his hand and continued, "But don't worry. When we look at the video on the bus, we will see which of you is telling the truth. Until then, you will be our guest at the police station." I said, "What did the other passengers on the bus tell you about what happened?" The policeman said, "They all said the same thing, that they didn't see anything." I couldn't believe it. No one on the bus supported what actually happened. The same older black woman came over and said, "That's the way it is here, sweetie. No one is willing to say anything because they worry they will get into trouble." I was placed in the back of a police car and driven to the station. Flashback, Jennifer and Glenn, finally back home. We were headed toward home. I was with Daddy in his car, and Corporal Connors drove Mother's car. Daddy seemed much more relaxed because the mess with Mother's car was over, and I almost hated to bring it up, but I needed to, so I said, "Daddy, don't you think we should call Daniela and let her know that Corporal Connors is coming to dinner with us?" Daddy swore, "Shit. I didn't think about that, but you're right. Jennifer, would you mind calling her? She might take it better from you." I hated even more to remind Daddy, but I did. "Daddy, you do remember that we're having ceviche mixto tonight for dinner, don't you?" Daddy swore more. He seemed to be swearing a lot lately, which meant he was under more stress. Understandable with Mother leaving us. Damn it. I sure as hell hope it's something that we can all eat. I added, and not get sick from eating it like Mother's food. Daddy complained, "Jennifer, please don't remind me of that again. I still can't believe Evelyn did that to us." I became brave and asked, "Daddy, do I really have to eat the ceviche mixto? Can't I just eat the food we have stashed in my room?" Daddy emphatically stated, "Jennifer, if Daniela took the time and effort to make the ceviche mixto for us, you will at least try it. Who can tell? You might even like it." I was lucky Daddy didn't see me stick out my tongue. I was sure I wouldn't like raw fish, and even more sure about raw octopus and calamari. I countered, "Daddy, I'm almost sure I won't like it." Daddy ordered, "Young lady, you will at least try it, and that's final." I called Daniela and told her we had Corporal Connors coming to dinner with us, and offered with huge hope, "But if you don't have enough ceviche, I can eat something else." Daddy cleared his voice to express his distaste with my offer, but Daniela ruined my idea when she laughed and answered, "Miss Jennifer, do not forget, I am Peruvian, and I always make more food than you will eat. So do not worry. I have enough ceviche for all of you, and if I didn't, I wouldn't eat. It is the Peruvian way. I disappointedly ended the call. Daddy began, Jennifer. I interrupted him before he got going and said, Daddy, don't worry. Daniela told me she has enough food for all of us. She said something about it being some sort of Peruvian tradition. Daddy laughed and said, you should thank Daniela because she just saved you from a grounding. I was feeling sassy, so I replied, Daddy, I'm not one of your frickin' soldiers, so don't try that military garbage on me. I couldn't believe Daddy's reply. Jennifer was being a rapido, which I sure as hell didn't need right now, not with everything else that happened. She had always been headstrong, but I couldn't tolerate her insubordination and had to counter it immediately. So I announced, Jennifer, with Evelyn being gone and with the way you've been acting, I think it's time we send you to a military school, and I know just the one. Jennifer interrupted. Daddy, what do you mean the way I've been acting? I've been trying to be good. I interrupted her. Like hell you have. Since Evelyn left, you have turned into some sort of little rebel, and I'm not going to tolerate it. Jennifer surprised me when she began to cry and begged, Daddy, please don't send me away. First I lost Mother, and now I'm losing you. Please see, Daddy. She moved over beside me, hugged my arm, and I felt like shit. I relented. Okay, Jennifer, let's make a deal. I won't send you to military school, and you will dial down the rebellion a few notches. Jennifer sniffled and agreed. Okay, Daddy, I promise, but let's pinky swear on it. Sometimes the things fathers do for their daughters, we pinky swore. I gave Jennifer a hanky and I said, okay, now dry your eyes and blow your nose because we're almost home. We made it home. I opened the garage door with the automatic opener. We parked both cars in the garage, then we walked into the house. I offered Corporal Connors. He interrupted. Sir, just call me Jed. I answered. Then you can call me Glenn. Can you stay for dinner? Jed answered. That would be great. I don't get many home-cooked meals. Jennifer slightly annoyed me when she said, well, I hope you like ceviche mixto, because that's what we're having. Jed grinned and remarked, damn. I haven't had any ceviche mixto since I bummed around South America after my time as a Marine. He looked at me and asked, Sir, I didn't know your wife knew how to make ceviche. I was a little embarrassed as I lied. Jed, Evelyn is at her mother's, so our Peruvian housekeeper made it. Jed grinned even more widely, damn. The ceviche in Peru is the best in all South America. You two are in for a treat. I grinned at Jennifer because her plan backfired, and I had to fight laughing when she stuck out her tongue at me. We walked into the house. Daniela greeted us. Welcome home, General, and Ms. Jennifer and friend of General Donaldson. I was surprised when Jed answered her in Spanish. They had a short conversation in Spanish. Then Daniela said, please sit at the table, and I will bring your food. We sat at the table. Jed rubbed his hands together and remarked, you two are in for a great treat tonight. Daniela made the ceviche with fresh sea bass. Jennifer griped, I think you forgot about the octopus and calamari. Jed grinned and offered, I will gladly eat those if you don't want to. I superseded Jed's offer. Jennifer needs to at least try one of each. Daniela brought out the plates of ceviche, and Jed practically salivated like one of Pavlov's dogs. She sat the plate in front of Jed and Jennifer. Jed picked up his fork and Daniela scolded him. Senor Jed, please do not eat until everyone is served, and we give thanks to Dios for our food. Jennifer looked like she was going to be ill. Daniela walked back into the kitchen to bring our plates. I looked at Jennifer and threatened, young lady, if you get sick and throw up your food, I will make you eat it again. Jed laughed and added, Jennifer, I wouldn't push the general on this. He will make you do it. Daniela came out of the kitchen with our plates and said, I still do not feel comfortable eating at the table. Jennifer jumped all over this opportunity and said, Daniela, if you don't sit at the table, I won't eat. Daniela capitulated. See, Ms. Jennifer, I understand that, but I would not want to keep you from eating this ceviche. It is a real treat in my country. Jed asked, could we please pray? The food is getting cold. Daniela laughed. Senor Jed, ceviche is always served slightly cold, but yes, let us thank Dios for our food. We bowed our heads and Daniela said a prayer. When it was done, Jed began to eat and exclaimed, this is the best ceviche I have ever had. Daniela blushed and answered, thank you, Senor Jed. You are too kind. She noticed Jennifer hadn't eaten yet, so she asked, Miss Jennifer, why haven't you tried the ceviche? I glared at Jennifer. She took a small bite of the fish, put it in her mouth, began to chew it, and remarked, hey, this is good. Jed suggested, you have to try the octopus and calamari. Jennifer poked at one of the tiny octopus with her fork and says, I don't know about this. They look weird. Daniela encouraged, Miss Jennifer, if you do not eat at least one of the pulpo and calamar, then you cannot have dessert. Jed quickly asked, dessert? You made dessert? What did you make? Daniela smiled at him and answered, Senor Jed, have you ever tried tres leches? Jed answered, I sure did, and it was one of my favorites when I was in Peru. I I was concerned when Jennifer asked, "What is tres leches, some sort of new torture?" Thank God she didn't offend Daniela, but Jed replied, "It's tres leches, not tres leches, and is this great cake made out 3 different kinds of milk?" Daniela interrupted, "Sorry, Senor Jed, my tres leches should be called cuatro leches because I use 4 different kinds of milk." Jennifer remarked, "That sounds really good." She made me proud when she picked up the smallest octopus on her plate, put it in her mouth, and ate it. She smiled, took a piece of the calamari, put it in her mouth, and ate it. Then she remarked, "I like the fish and the calamari, but sorry, Daniela, I don't like the octopus because it's kind of chewy." Daniela smiled and said, "Do not worry, Ms. Jennifer. Not everyone enjoys pulpo." Jed offered, "I love pulpo and would gladly eat yours." With all the interactions at the table, I had yet to try the ceviche. Jennifer, of course, noticed and teased, "Daddy, unless you eat your ceviche, you won't get any of the milk cake." I took a big fork full, put it in my mouth, chewed it up. It was damn good for what I normally would have called fish bait. Swallowed and said, "Daniela, thank you for making ceviche for us. You can make this anytime you want. The only thing that would make this meal better would be a beer." Daniela profusely apologized. "Sorry, senor. I forgot to give you a beer. I will be right back." She practically ran into the kitchen and came back with 2 beers, one for Jed and one for me. I glared at the bottle and remarked, "Light beer?" Jennifer laughed and interrupted, "That's right, Daddy. I already told Daniela that you only drink light beer. But if you don't want it, I will drink it." The twinkle was back in Jennifer's eyes, so I said, "Well, even though light beer tastes like horse piss, it's still better than no beer at all." Jennifer laughed and confronted me, "Daddy, how do you know what horse urine tastes like?" We all laughed and continued to eat. Jennifer gave Jed her octopus, which he ate with gusto. We were surprised again when Daniela announced, "Miss Jennifer, when I cleaned your room today, I found enough food to last for weeks. I hope you do not mind. I brought it down here and put it in the cabinets." Jennifer showed some anger when she asked, "You found all my hiding places?" Thank God Daniela didn't notice the anger and replied, "Of course, Miss Jennifer. I could not believe the amount of dirt in this house, so I did a proper cleaning." Jennifer continued her adversarial posture and asked, "What about my books?" Daniela interrupted, "Do not worry, Miss Jennifer, your diary is back where I found it, and I would never look in something so personal. I forgot to mention, I rearranged all the clothes in your and your father's dressers. I sure as hell didn't like that since I had my dressers the way I liked them." Jennifer, who knew this from helping Evelyn put away my clothes, looked at me and grinned like a Cheshire cat. Daniela noticed Jennifer's grin and asked, "Miss Jennifer, did I do something wrong?" Before Jennifer said anything, I answered, "I sort of had things the way I liked them." Daniela said, "Do not worry, senor. I think you will find my way better." We had devoured the ceviche and Jennifer offered, "Daniela, I will clear the table while you get the dessert." This time Daniela didn't complain. Jennifer cleared the table and Daniela brought out 4 whiskey tumblers. I wasn't sure I liked her using my whiskey tumblers for this, full to the brim with the tres leches cake. It was heavenly, and I commented, "Now if I had a shot of bourbon, it would be perfect." Daniela jumped up and asked, "Would Senor Jed also like a bourbon?" He grinned at her, said something in Spanish which made her blush, and she rushed off to get the bourbon. Jed leaned over and told me, "Glenn, where the hell did you find her? She's fantastic." I answered, "You're not going to believe this, but a friend told me about her." Daniela came back with 2 fingers of bourbon in each glass and asked, "Would either senor desire ice in their drink?" We both declined and finished the tres leches with the bourbon. Jed left, Daniela left, then Jennifer came to me and said, "Did you see the way those 2 were looking at each other?" I answered, "No, I didn't. What are you talking about?" Jennifer scolded, "Daddy, sometimes you are so dense. I could tell those 2 were falling in love." Flashback, Alexei, at the laboratory. With Chow Mein rampaging through the laboratory, I was confined to my room. I was occupied documenting my current interactions with Chow Mein when I couldn't believe it. There was a yowl and a scratch at my door. Chow Mein wanted back into my room. There was no way I was going to let her in since she had attacked everyone, and I certainly didn't want her to attack me. There was only one problem. Without a phone in my room, I had no way to contact the orderlies about Chow Mein's location. I went to the door, banged on it, and began to yell for the orderlies. I heard Chow Mein go more insane on the other side of the door as she began to yowl louder and banged against the door so hard it rattled. I didn't like this, so I kicked the door, and Chow Main's anger exploded. She made so much noise it was frightening, and banged the door so hard I felt she was going to invade my room by sheer force of will. Then she began to stick her front feet under the door and claw at the rug. I came up with a new idea. The next time she stuck her feet under the door, I stepped on one of them. Her yowl, even heard through my door, was almost deafening. She began to hiss and spit under the door and clawed like she was trying to dig a hole under the door. I came up with a new idea, ran back into my room, grabbed 2 more items, and went back to the door. I knelt on the floor and looked under the door. Chow Mein also looked under the door, and when she saw me, she growled and hissed, then tried to dig under the door again. I took the ruler I brought with me and began to hit her paws with it. Every time I hit her paws, she growled like crazy and banged into the door. Then I made a mistake. I stuck the ruler under the door. Chow Mein captured it and yanked it out of my hands. Then I heard some cracking noises that could only be Chow Mein destroying the ruler. It was time to try my next torture. I took the piece of rope I brought over, fastened it into a loop, put it at the edge of the door, then banged on the door again. Chow Mein stuck her paws under the door right into the loop on the rope. I pulled with all my strength and captured both of her paws. She fought harder than the fish I caught on a fishing trip with father, and I was sure she would pull the rope from my hands. She rolled on her back, trying to escape, so I looped the rope twice over the doorknob, pulled it tightly, and tied it to itself. She began to furiously bite into the bottom edge of the door, and I was afraid she would tear a hole into the door. I ran back into my room, threw a coat over the camera, grabbed some matches, and came back by Chow Mein. When I lit the first match, she must have smelled it and became even more enraged. I held it against one of her paws, and the noise she made was practically deafening. The first match extinguished, so I lit another match, and Chow Mein somehow pulled so hard her legs slipped out of my noose. Things became deathly still in the hallway outside my room, so I again peeked under the door. Chow Mein was waiting for me, lunged at the door, slid her paws under the door, and almost caught me. I wasn't sure what to do. Then I heard some voices in the hallway. I banged on the door and yelled, "Help me." Chow Mein let out a yowl. The voices began to scream, and I could hear them run down the hallway. I peeked under the door again, this time making sure I was further away, and Chow Mein was gone. I considered what to do and jumped like crazy when someone knocked on the door. I asked who was there. I heard a familiar voice, "Alexei, it is your father, let me in." I wanted to be safe, so I asked, "Is Chow Mein gone?" Father answered, "Alexei, I don't see her anywhere. What happened to your door?" I began to answer him when I heard Chow Main's yowl, and father said in a sweet voice, "Chow Mein girl, remember me?" I yelled, "Run, father, she's gone crazy." Chow Mein emitted a long yowl, and father screamed, "Get away from me, you devil cat." Then the yowling and father's voice faded away. Flashback, Mira and Ira, back in Kazakhstan. My sister Ira's plan had one very fatal flaw. Unfortunately, she would not listen to reason in her current irate condition. Yes, Ira's anger had overridden her logic. I followed her up the steep slope until we finally stopped, and Ira said, "This is the perfect location from which to terminate Kostia's helicopter." I carefully reminded Ira, "My sister, what manner of helicopter conveys Kostia?" She looked at me and answered, "Mira, did not you recognize the Hind 24? She stopped speaking and blurted, "Offspring of a female Saluki. Our weapons will have no effect on his helicopter." I agree. Ira, you are correct, however these implements might damage the helicopter. Flashback, Todd, on the mission. I actually made it to the outer edge of the compound without encountering any more deadly animals. But there were still problems to deal with which weren't revealed to me in the mission briefing. I wondered how many other things were conveniently forgotten. The compound was on the highest piece of ground in the area, and there were serious armed patrols walking the perimeter. I scanned the area for a tree, but they had removed all of them from the perimeter of the compound. I slowly slipped back to the edge of the jungle, climbed a tree, and did what I did the best. I waited and contemplated. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.